First Action Man, now Atomic Man. See his signaling eye, half pacer, and mighty arm with rotocopter attachment. Atomic Man, one of the Action Man team from Palitoy.
Action Man.
Now he's got eagle eyes that actually move. On the lookout for action. Up in the mountains. Down in the jungle. He drops from the skies. And rises from the depths. He's all action. Look out for all these fantastic uniforms specially designed for
Action Man.
And his eagle eyes.
Come with me, toy fans.
Hello and welcome to the New Year's Eve edition of the Analog Toys live stream. Happy New Year, everyone. I know for a lot of you it's New Year's Eve. For me, it's already 2025 because I live in the future. Yes, it's 6 a.m. New Year's Day here. Hopefully we get, there's already a few people watching. It was always going to be a bit of a gamble hosting a live stream on New Year's Eve because a lot of people have New Year's Eve plans. But I won't be unlisting this live stream afterwards so that people can catch the replay. But this is the only opportunity I was going to have to host a live stream between now and heading off on a toy hunting trip in Japan shortly. So thank you all for being here. We've got a really interesting topic tonight. We've got a lot of stuff to go over, and I think you're all going to find it really quite fascinating. Excuse me. Jason Anderson's plans are to sit on his couch and eat pizza like a caveman. That's a good New Year's Eve, if you ask me. I was in bed by 8:30 on New Year's Eve. So let's say hello to everyone in the chat. So first of all, Jason Anderson, Jesse, George Aitken, Jimmy Purvis, White and Nerdy, Martin Hughes, also in WA. It's good to see you up so early, my man, to watch this. Gary's Action Man channel. Happy New Year, mate. Alan Dawson says, Happy New Year, guys. I'm working, so I'll be watching on the phone, but probably not able to chat much. Yeah, I get it. So my friend Alan, very well-known guy in the Action Man collecting community, he drives the taxis. He's making sure that people get home safely tonight. So thank you for doing that, Alan. And hopefully you can listen in and that no one vomits in the back of your cab tonight. I'd also like to thank Timothy because he became a YouTube channel member. Thank you very much. And a special thank you to Jason Anderson. This is very kind of you, sir. He gifted 10 Analog Toys channel memberships. So that's very, very much appreciated. Okay. Let's get into the topic. So for those of you who aren't already aware, Bob Brechin, who was the chief toy designer at Palitoy from 1967 through to the closure of Palitoy's design department at the end of 1984. He was the designer of the Robo Skull. He sculpted Action Man's gripping hand. He's appeared on this channel many times. A lot of the videos on this channel, the Palitoy themed ones anyway, would not have been possible without Bob Brechin's kind assistance. Well, Bob has decided to sell off a very large portion of his collection, and we have a lot of prototypes and really interesting stuff. We're talking Action Man, Palitoy Action Man, Palitoy Action Force. He is selling off a very large portion of his collection at an auction house called Vectis. Now, Vectis is the UK version of, is it Hakes Americana? It is the most well-known vintage toy auction house in the UK. I was chatting to him the other day. He's not selling off everything, but this is, a really large portion of his collection that he's selling off. And for myself, there are a few things that I would like to bid on. So I'm not doing myself any favors by hosting this live stream and telling a load of people about it because, I might be competing with other people's bids for some of the items I want. But at the end of the day, Bob is a dear friend of mine, and he didn't ask me to do this, but I thought it would make a very interesting topic for the Analog Toys audience. And I would also like to help my friend get the most he can for his very special collection. I will be keeping an eye on the on the chat. If you have any questions as we go along, post them into the chat. I'll pull up comments from time to time and try and answer your questions as best I can. Hail to the King 5000 says hello from a very wet and windy UK. As a matter of fact, I was woken up at about 1 a.m. this morning due to a horrific thunderstorm happening here where I live in the northwest of WA, Western Australia. Thunder, lightning, howling wind. I was like, where in the hell did that come from? It kind of came out of nowhere, and it has died down now, but I thought, just in case there's going to be any issues with the Wi-Fi, I am plugged in with a cable, so I think we're going to be good. I'm trusting the internet as much as I can, so let's get into the topic. George says, did I get a gift from Kraken Creations? No, you've sent me some stuff from Kraken Creations before, but I've not received anything recently, if that's what you're talking about. Brian Ford said it's nice mid-20s here in Adelaide. Well, it was 38 degrees here yesterday in Port Hedland and really humid, and then we had a bit of a tropical thunderstorm last night, which has made the garden really messy. And I've been told by Grace as she left to work that when I'm done with my live stream, my next job is to go and clean up the garden. So that's my New Year's Day. Welcome to 2025, everybody. All right, let's get into the topic. So the thumbnail I put together says Palitoy Action Force auction, obviously covering a load of prototypes, but there is a few Action Man items in here and a few other pieces. I haven't grabbed images of every single thing that Bob is putting up for auction, but I did grab a very large sampling of the images from the Vectis website. So if you would like to take your own look at the catalog for this auction, the link to the Vectis website is in the video description below. So first things first, this auction is being held at 10 a.m. UK time on Thursday, the 16th of January. Now, I'm going to be in Tokyo when this happens, so I'm probably not going to be able to live bid. I'm going to be on holiday with the family, and I don't want to be distracted by it. I'm not sure if what I'm going to bid on. I'm also trying to save my money for the Japan trip as well. But you can, post bids early on. But before we get into some of the items that Bob is selling, I wanted to give you a little bit of information. So this is when it's happening, 10 a.m. UK time on Thursday, the 16th of January. So a little over 2 weeks from now. And in order to bid, they take online bids, phone bids. Of course, you can actually attend. If you're in the UK, you can attend the auction in person. But you need to set up a Vectis account with a valid credit card details. And the next important thing to note is so the bidding increments from £5 to £50. It's in £5 increments. From £50 to £200 in £10 increments, then it goes up to £20 increments. Once we get up to the £700 range, it's in £50 increments, and so on. A reserve is set at 60% of the bottom estimate for all lots. So you'll see I'm going to talk a little bit about the estimates later on in the live stream. And they're there for all to see. You can see, the low end and high end estimates, so you can figure out what the reserve price is. I'm telling you, most of these items are going to exceed the high end of the estimate, I believe, anyway. But a very, very important thing to note is that the buyer's premium is 22.5% plus VAT, which makes it a total of 27%. So, as I understand this, if you bid £100 on an item and you win that item for £100, it's actually going to cost you £127 because that percentage doesn't come out of your bid. That £100 is what Bob will get for the item, and then the additional 27% covers the VAT tax in the UK and the buyer's premium, which is how the auction house makes its money. And then, of course, you know, if you're local or international and you've got to pay shipping, that's going to be another charge on top of that. So, Jason Anderson, thank you very much for the kind super chat, my friend. He said, for Tony's Action Auction Fund. Let's not start that. I don't need the audience to buy any of this stuff for me, but thank you very much, sir. He says, join me and we can rule this auction as financiers and buying guys. I like what you did there with the Star Wars quote. Brian Ford says, I have a boxed Action Man Lunar capsule. What is it worth in actual real readies? Brian, from the very beginning of this channel, which started 8.5 years ago, we started in July 2016. I have made it a policy on this channel to never offer people valuations. I'm not a toy dealer. I'm not an expert. When I'm purchasing stuff, I just go with my gut, whether I think I'm getting a good deal or not. And I collect so much different stuff, and I go through phases where, you know, I'll be really into Action Man for a while, and then, for example, this past year, I've only picked up like 2 Action Man items in the last 12 months. So I've not been keeping up with Action Man prices. So there are places around where you. The first thing you should do is have a look on eBay and look at sold listings. Now, if no one has sold an Action Man Lunar capsule in that time, and there's no sold listing available, another option is there are vintage Action Man collector groups on Facebook, and some of those groups will offer valuations for items. So there we go. All right, let's get into some of the amazing items that Bob Brechin is putting up for auction in a couple of weeks' time. And we're going to kick things off with something that's not even Palitoy. So here we have the Corgi Superman Supermobile. And there's a certificate of authenticity there, which I can't actually read from here. But there's a number of mint boxed Corgi vehicle toy items in this auction. And they came from the personal collection of Alan Blanchard, who I believe was Palitoy's kind of chief model maker. So there's some interesting and the auction that's happening on the 16th of January is not just Bob Brechin stuff. There's a bunch of other stuff, but what we're specifically focusing on in this live stream tonight is the stuff from Bob Brechin's collection. Okay. There you go, Brian. Kevin Kelly's kind of helps you out there. He said, depending on shape, I'd expect an Action Man Lunar capsule would fetch between £80 and £120. There you go. If it's boxed, then it could be completely different again. Jason says, who doesn't like a self-branded vehicle with big punching fists on it? That would be like me painting my car beige and putting cat hair all over it. Yeah, it certainly does scream Superman, doesn't it? It really does. And then, of course, we have here the Corgi Toys Buck Rogers Starfighter. If you remember the Starfighter from the show, the front end had 2 very long kind of points to it, and what Corgi Toys did was put this is a die-cast metal toy. There's a strip of metal between those 2 points so that children didn't, you know, poke their own eyes out and things like that. So M Vargo, thank you for being here. What are your and Zoe's plans for for this New Year's Eve, my friend. I hope you got something nice planned, and thank you for being a member for 16 months. And also, thank you for being a long-time patron of this channel and supporting what we do here over on Patreon. That's much appreciated. So this is a really cool piece. I really don't know a lot about Corgi toys and whether these estimates of £80 to £100 are accurate or not. But again, if the reserve price is 60% of the lower end of the estimate, then I think the current bid of £45 has just met that that reserve price. I believe that's how it works. I'm not great at maths. Embargo says nothing major planned, just relaxing for once. Well, that's cool, man. You can hang out here and enjoy this live stream and let me know if you're going to bid on any of this stuff. So, okay. Now we get into some very, very interesting Palitoy Action Force prototype items. And the first one here, these are metal tooling aids for the Mountain and Arctic figure, plus 2 resin heads. The figure was sculpted in clay, rubber molds were taken of all parts, and metal castings and resins were taken from those molds. So these are the legs and the arms, you know, the original metal tooling aids for the Mountain and Arctic, which is, you know, the Action Man version of the Royal Marine Commando in all of his Arctic gear. So a very, very interesting piece of pre-production vintage Palitoy history. So Bob is also putting up a whole heap of quite rare, quite obscure vintage Palitoy paperwork, like trade catalogs and things like that. I would love to acquire some of these. An interesting one to point out in that bottom right corner there. This came from Palitoy's advertising agency. It was a brochure including original letters. So it has like a red cover where the page underneath has an illustration of an Action Man with eagle eyes, and there's a square cutout of the front red cover, which is then opened up. And the reason I find that interesting is I've never, ever seen that before. But Palitoy's trade catalogs, I'm fortunate to have digital copies of a lot of these. These don't turn up very often. These are large A4 size. These were not intended for the general public. This is what Palitoy used to take to the toy fairs and give out to the retailers who, you know, they were trying to entice them to stock all of their, whether it's Action Man product or Star Wars in some cases. Good to see you, Chronically. Good to see you here. Okay. Now, this is a very, very interesting piece. Bob has a couple of folders here full of original photographs of just Palitoy concept items. If you look at this listing on the Vectis website, you'll see that there is loads and loads of different photos of different pages of the folder that you can go and look at. But this is, you know, this is a really unique piece from an original Palitoy designer. Have all of that pre-production concept photographs and illustrations. So you can see here in one of the pages original photographs of, you know, that's the original wax sculpture of the Kraken and Skeletron. It's not the production samples of the figures. Really, really, really fascinating stuff. Excuse me, I'm a little parched. I need my morning tea. I've had a coffee, now I'm on my tea. Okay, Bob is also putting up, he had I think there's 3 carded figures, maybe more. I didn't grab images of all of them. But because these are from his personal collection, they come with a certificate of authenticity, and Bob has autographed a card back. So I think I only grabbed the one image for this slideshow, which was the Baron Ironblood, but there is a couple of other original vintage carded figures that Bob has autographed, and it comes with a nice signed certificate as well, so that you know it's come from his personal collection, which means since it left Palitoy in the early 80s, it's always been with him. It's never been owned by anybody else. All right, this is really interesting. When I came across this particular listing, it's something I didn't know about. So this certificate says, in 1983, after the release of the reconceived Action Force range with Baron Ironblood and the Red Shadows, which included some Hasbro vehicles and figures, we decided to reinvestigate developing our own 7 POA figures. Obviously, the Palitoy figures were 5 POA, Star Wars style, so articulation at the hips, shoulders, and the neck. And all of the O-ring style figures were repainted Hasbro G.I. Joes. I had no idea that they made another attempt to do 7 POA figures by adding in knee joints. And this is one of those prototypes made at that time. Never came to fruition, but very, very interesting to see. This would have made the figures a bit more like the Indiana Jones line, where, you know, you still had you didn't have elbow joints and things like that. But they weren't 5 POA, they were 7 POA because they had knee joints, mainly so that Indy could ride the Arabian horse, I believe. So, I've got some images of this in one of my Action Force videos where I talked about, I think it's in the video around Action Force 1982, the first series in 82, where Palitoy were kind of going through a number of different concept ideas. Now, these kind of remind me of like Timpo toy soldiers, where the concept was going to be a 3 3/4 inch action figure, but instead of being articulated, you would get alternate sets of arms and legs. So you could have the soldier sitting down or kneeling, and you know, different shaped arms for holding weapons and different things like that. And this certificate reads, this is a prototype Action Force figure. It was made in 1981 and was an alternative idea for the construction of the figure where the child could change the arms and legs for different poses and situations. Time did not allow for the development, and it was decided to follow the 5 POA style that Star Wars figures used. So again, another very interesting piece of Palitoy Action Force production history. So I agree with you, White Nerdy. I would have loved this concept as well. I loved all of those old, what are they, 1:32 scale, you know, the plastic soldiers we used to get back in those days that had the same concept, where the individual soldiers didn't come with alternate legs and stuff. But if you bought a set of them, you could swap the legs over from different figures and create unique looks for your different soldiers in each crew. So. Now, there's a whole bunch of these that I'm going to cover. This is a prototype of a figure that actually came out, and I believe that these are the items that are probably going to fetch the most at the auction, because there are collectors out there while they might be collecting everything Palitoy Action Force, some people have focuses. For me, obviously, it's Desert Rat. I've got a Desert Rat focus. I've got a whole shelf dedicated to Desert Rat in my collection. So this here is the Deep Sea Diver, and there's a lot of crossover here because the Deep Sea Diver, the toy version, was originally designed and developed by Hasbro for the 12-inch G.I. Joe in the late 60s. The outfit then came across the Atlantic and was brought into the Palitoy Action Man range. Super popular set. Palitoy made many variations of this over the years. You know, I don't know if the Deep Sea Diver remained in the Action Man line right up until it ended in 84, but it was certainly still around in 81, 82. I have an original 60s version. I have an early 1980s version of the 12-inch Deep Sea Diver. So when they did the first line of Palitoy Action Force in 82, they took the most popular Action Man uniforms and shrunk them down to 3 3/4 inch scale. And this is the original metal prototype of the Deep Sea Diver. It was used on the display diorama at the 1982 British Toy Fair. The figure was sculpted in clay and rubber molds taken of all components. Metal castings were then taken of those molds, and the figure was assembled and hand painted. A lot of these prototypes, if you look at those Palitoy trade catalogs from 1982, a lot of the photography in there actually shows the prototypes and not the final production issue of the figures. And an important thing to note with the metal prototypes, they're a little bit taller than the production samples of the figures, because when you do injection molded plastic, when it comes out of the mold, it shrinks a little bit, whereas the metal doesn't. So where the figures are kind of 3 3/4 inch, the metal prototypes are about 4 inches even. So I think this item might fetch a pretty penny. Now, when it comes to Palitoy Action Force prototypes, we're not talking about the same ridiculous kind of money that we do when we talk about Kenner Star Wars prototypes. Like, there's nothing here that's going to go for $1 million like a rocket firing Boba Fett, but I think $1 million for a rocket firing Boba Fett is an absolute scam. I believe that's auction houses kind of buying their own stuff to drive up prices. There is no way that, you know, in this scenario, there might only be a couple, 2 or 3 prototypes of these. And the other thing, this is a genuine prototype. This came from an original rubber mold, cast in metal, glued together, hand painted by a designer. Those rocket firing Boba Fetts, they're test shots. That's further along down the production run. There is imagery around of the original prototype. I don't know if that figure actually exists or not still. And when you're talking about a genuine handmade pre-production sample compared to a test shot, I don't think it should have the same level of value or reverence. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does, George. Bobby does love prototype stuff, and I sent him the link to this Vectis auction as soon as I learned about it. So yeah. Okay, so here we have this is a resin prototype, I believe. So this is the British Commando. This again was used on the display at the 1982 Toy Fair. So there is kind of two, and I don't know which one came first, the metal or the resin. I think the resin ones kind of looked better for the photography and that kind of thing, and the metal prototypes they made from those original rubber molds helped with the tooling aids. So yeah, and what's really interesting around this one, I don't know if he was designed to be sitting in the Action Force headquarters at the Toy Fair or in one of the vehicles, but this figure's actually in the sitting pose. So you can't articulate these prototypes. They're resin. They're all kind of glued together. They're fixed in that position. So, yeah, having one of these prototypes in a unique pose is quite interesting. Crossbones Cooper says, "Did I ever do a vid on why Desert Rat is your favorite?" Well, I mean, Desert Rat wasn't originally my favorite or anything like that. There are loads of videos on this channel that explain that me and my likeness was Bobby Valor from Valorverse, who's got the new Action Force line. He brought my likeness into the toy line, and he gave the character the name of Desert Rat as a nod and a wink to the original 82 Palitoy Action Force. So yes, there's a bunch of videos on the channel about that whole experience that's happened over the last couple of years. So Cutthroat Comics, good to see you here, man. Mr. Schaefer says, "Happy New Year's, Tony. Analog Toys. Sorry, I can't watch along live tonight. I have to catch the replay. Have a great live stream, everyone, and happy holidays." And to you, sir. I did say at the start of this, it was always going to be a gamble hosting a stream on New Year's Eve. I wasn't sure how many people would turn up. But, you know, we've got about 140 of us watching right now. So it's going better than expected. And where I often unlist live streams, I will not be unlisting this one so that people can catch the replay, because I want to help promote Bob's auction, so that, you know, try and get him as much money as possible for his very special items that he's putting up for sale. So all right, what's next? Okay, so here we have a metal prototype of the Arctic Assault figure, which was part of the Action Man special team. Originally, you had the ground assault, underwater assault, Arctic assault, and then later on the missile assault. This is the metal prototype. Again, another quite interesting piece. I think it's going to be sort of quite popular at the actual auction itself. Darth Sidious, what? Okay. He says he is talking about me. Righto, let's just block this idiot from the channel. Nice and easy. He's gone now. Let's crack on with the live stream, shall we, folks? Sorry for the rude interruption and distraction. Okay. I really, really like this piece for a number of reasons. So the Australian Jungle Fighter is one of the more rare 1982 figures. It's very, very hard even to get the loose. You can get the loose figure, but to get it complete with the slouch hat, it was removable. So that that piece was often lost. But what's really interesting with this, so this is the metal prototype. He comes with a Sten gun, which that Sten gun was produced for the line, but it was given to the Commando. The actual Australian Jungle Fighter the production, the retail release figure came with a Thompson submachine gun. But this is painted in a different color to what was eventually released. And it should be noted that the carded Australian Jungle Fighter is the rarest carded Action Force figure that there is. I was very fortunate to pick one up in the at Joe Fest a couple of years ago. So Stratos, good to see you here. Wishing everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Hey, my pleasure, man. My pleasure doing this. Yeah, this is one of the rarer Action Force figures from the original. Probably not the loose figures. Probably not the rarest. I would say the rarest would be some of the much later vehicle drivers from '85, which are UK repaints of Hasbro GI Joe figures. But certainly to get this original figure carded, there's really not many of them left in existence. Very, very hard to find. So yeah, this metal prototype was painted in a different color to what the figure was actually released in. And the eventual release figure looked a lot more like this. So this is the resin prototype. So we have the metal prototype, and you can see the completely different shade of green being used here. This looks a lot more like the vintage 60s GI Joe Marine Jungle Fighter as opposed to Australian Jungle Fighter, the US Marine Jungle Fighter. This could be the item that pulls the most money at this auction, I believe. And now I think is the time to talk about the estimates. The Vectis estimate for this item is £100 to £140 at the high end. That is so conservative. I don't really know how to describe it. So Bob has auctioned off Action Force prototypes before, but that was a number of years ago, and I was surprised back then that they didn't fetch higher prices. But yes, Jeff Morris, it is very, very low. It's not going to go for that price, let me tell you. Bob sold off a bunch of these prototypes a number of years ago, and even then I thought they went way too cheaply, and the kind of average they were going for was £600. I'm not sure what that is in American dollars. What is that in US dollars? Bear with me a moment. So £600 at the moment would be about $750 US. I think this would easily fetch £1,000, this prototype, particularly because of the type of character that it is. But again, this is nothing like the prices that could be realized for vintage Star Wars prototypes and that kind of thing. So if anyone is thinking, I'd like to have a rare Action Force prototype in my collection, but I'm going to be priced out, you might not be. Have a go. You might not fetch something like this, but yeah, I may even do a future live stream when I get back from Japan and talk about the prices that they do realize. So okay, everyone, Tony's going to need £1,000. Time to pack on the calories. Desert rat to dessert rat. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of these estimates are very, very conservative from Vectis, but at the same time, how do you give an estimate on a one-of-a-kind item that's never come up before? You just don't know what it's going to go for until it goes on the day. Yeah, I'll be interested to see. There's a lot of items, so I do hope Bob makes a good chunk of money out of this. Out of selling off his collection. So, all right, this I particularly like. This is a prototype of the British Marine, the Royal Marine Commando. So some of these prototypes you'll notice come with their weapons, some don't. This one, it has the SLR. Unfortunately, the barrel has broken off of it. This one is this resin? I believe this is one of the resin samples, but I really like the hand-painted camouflage on that one. Very, very cool. Yeah, Jason says, things are worth what someone somewhere is willing to pay for them. The question always is, will that person show up with their wallet? Yeah. Do they even know about this auction? Did they spend too much money over Christmas and don't have another couple of pays coming in? It's yeah, this is an iconic Action Force figure from the early 1980s. Super cool piece, and this is not something that I personally would bid on, as I'm still undecided if I'm going to bid on anything, because if I do, and I potentially win, that's going to be a big chunk of money that comes away from my Japan toy hunting trip. So I'm like, I kind of wish Bob wasn't dropping this when I'm going on holiday in Japan, but what can you do? Yeah, well, Jesse, this figure came out in 1982, and that's when the Falklands War happened. So this became a very popular figure at that time because of that. And Brian Dillingham, thank you very much for the super chat, my friend. He says, Happy New Year's to you and your family, and to you, good sir. Thank you very much for the Dillinghamism. Oh, 100%, Jason. I plan on maxing out my credit card, but I was going to max it out in Japan. So, yeah, we'll have to see what happens. Strato says, I've got about 8 more hours for 2024. I wish you all the best for 2025. Let's hope and pray it goes well, and we're all prosperous, healthy, and wise. Thank you very much. And for those of you in the UK who are watching, they've got about 1 hour and 18 minutes. So depending on when this stream ends, we might be wishing everyone in the UK, we might be able to do the 10-second countdown and wish them a, happy 2025. We'll see. 2025 is already here for me, Brian Ford. It's almost 7 a.m. on the 1st of January here in Western Australia. So, okay, moving on now to a super interesting piece. So I'm just going to read what's written on the certificate here. These are 2 damaged cyclopses, fearsome warriors from Greek mythology. In August 1984, the Palitoy design department was closed down. However, during the first half of that year, Bob was considering how the Action Force concept may develop. One crazy idea was that Baron Ironblood had invented a time machine, which he used to go back in history to find more recruits for his army. This is a unique resin prototype figure. So maybe if General Mills hadn't have shut Palitoy's design and development department down, perhaps this is what we might have seen in the Action Force line in 85 or 86. Who knows? M. Vargo says these are wacky but cool. I really agree. Absolutely. All right, this is interesting. This is a selection of metal models of some of the accessories. We've got the detonator, the ammo box. The detonator and the ammo box came with a bunch of different figures. The shovel came with the Royal Marine Commando, or the British Marine, as it was called in the Action Force line. I'm not sure if the shovel came with any other figure. I think it was only with the British Marine, which makes me think it would be really cool if it was actually up for auction with the British Marine, because he's got the SLR rifle, albeit the barrel has broken off. But I thought it would be very cool to have the prototype of this figure with the shovel. But this has been this is being auctioned off separately, this accessory. So, oh, and by the way, guys, I forgot to mention, before this stream is over, I have a mystery box here from Scuba Pete, a dear friend of mine and a long-time supporter of this channel. I will be opening this box at some point toward the end of the stream as well. So Scuba can't be here tonight because him and his lovely wife Leslie are enjoying some New Year's Eve festivities, but he can always catch the replay. Yes, Jason, it's a Scuba box. Absolutely. Right. Along with the Australian Jungle Fighter, this is another prototype that I think is going to do very, very well at the auction. It's a resin prototype of the German Stormtrooper, which was part of the 1982 Action Force Series 1 range. It was included in the display diorama at the 82 British Toy Fair. An iconic action figure from the line, an iconic uniform from the Action Man line from the 60s and 70s, and an outfit that was originally designed in the second half of the 1960s in the US for Hasbro's G.I. Joe. And it was one of those items that was adopted across and tweaked and evolved over the years. The retail release figures, a lot of the retail release figures didn't come with any stickers on the helmet or any of the badges on the side, but there are some quite rare examples of retail release production figures. If you can get a sealed German Stormtrooper and it has the markings on the side of the helmet, that is far, far more rare than the one that comes without the helmet markings. So Crossbones Cooper, I don't know why you would be getting hate for being in the States. Most of my closest, dearest friends are Americans who live in the States. Or are you saying you might get hate in the States for this opinion? Because you like Action Force more than G.I. Joe, one word. Look, I like Action Force and G.I. Joe. I'm obviously a little bit more partial to the Palitoy stuff because it's British and that's what I grew up with. But yeah. Jesse, I don't. When Palitoy were developing their own stuff, they didn't really like to license anything. You know, Action Man had no story behind it. It was designed to inspire a child's imagination. Your Action Man could be anything you wanted him to be. That was the real appeal of that product line. So I doubt they would have done that. And I don't know that Hogan's Heroes was even aired on TV in the UK anyway. I don't think I learned about Hogan's Heroes until I moved to Australia, but I could be wrong there. Yeah, so I think this along with the Australian Jungle Fighter, I think this prototype will fetch a pretty penny at the auction as well. As will this. I had never seen or heard of this before until I stumbled across the listing on the Vectis website, which for those of you who joined late, if you want to go and look at all the stuff that Bob is auctioning off, the link to the Vectis online catalog is in the video description below. This is a metal prototype and an alternative to the German Stormtrooper that was in the 1982 Action Force Series 1. This has obviously a very unique color palette. So this is the German Stormtrooper, and this is kind of the color he was when he came out in the Palitoy range. They did this, they gave him a camouflage pattern on his helmet. It's a very, very unique look. Like I really, really, really like this item. Will I bid on it? I don't know. It's kind of cool, isn't it? And this is a metal. All right, this is kind in the photo. It kind of looks like resin to me because the metal prototypes, the paintwork doesn't stay on them quite as well. You often will see the chips on the metal prototypes, and we'll see the material underneath. Not so much with the resin ones. The paint sticks a lot better to the resin, but I trust Bob's certificate if he's saying that's a metal prototype. Yeah, I'm interested. I must say I'm interested. I'm just catching up on some of the chat here, folks. No, I don't know how to pronounce that name. This is what is produced now. Will that eventually become collectible? It'll be collectible to a certain degree, to a certain generation. But for example, when Star Wars was reissued, when Star Wars action figures were reissued in the mid 90s, was it 95? When Kenner came out with the Power of the Force 2 line, everyone thought they were going to be collectible one day because the originals were. So they went out and they bought them en masse. And here we are now, 30 years removed from the mid 90s, or literally 30 years this year. And you still can't get $10 a piece for those figures. So no, not. There's much slimmer chances of the stuff that's coming out now being collectible later on. I think the stuff that will become collectible later on will be unique, original ideas, not, Star Wars Black Series is not going to be super collectible in 20 years' time. I guarantee it. Because if people want to go back and collect the rare, unique stuff, they're still going to go back to the original late 70s, early 80s Kenner. That's my opinion. Yojo Jerk, good to see you, brother. Happy holidays to you too, my friend. Happy New Year. All right, now we've got a quite rare Action Man officer's cap, and I think I might be able to answer Beavis's question here with this particular slide. So, this is the wooden pattern for the British officer's cap made by Alan Blanchard, Palitoy's chief model maker. It is 4 times the actual size. So this is the officer's cap that came with all of the Action Man talking commanders after around, I think they introduced this around 73 when the gripping hands were introduced. And every Action Man from that point, every talking Action Man, I should say, from that point on came with the British officer's cap. This is 4 times the size, so this would be quite a large piece. And while it might kind of not look all that attractive or anything like that, this is one of those things I was like, this is so obscure and so unusual, but it's also representative of such an iconic Action Man accessory. This is an item that I would like to bid on. I really, really like this piece. It's very interesting, and who knows? Who knows? Another thing to note with this officer's cap is that until I think it was 83 or 84 when they changed the cap badge to the SAS cap badge because of the popularity of the Action Man SAS range, every other example comes with the motto of the 17th 21st Lancers. And you can see it looks like it's kind of drawn on the front there in pencil with the skull and crossbones and, the death or glory motto of that particular regiment. So here we have, now in this description, Bob says this is an alternative prototype of the Mountain and Arctic figure that was in the 1982 Series 1 range. It was sculpted in clay and rubber molds taken of all the components. I'm not sure what he means by alternative. The sculpt looks like the retail release figure, but the retail release figure was pretty much all what, like it didn't have brown gloves. They didn't paint the cap coming out underneath the hood. They didn't paint the goggles. But I think the sculpt kind of looks the same. This, I believe, will do quite well in the auction as well. This is a very... when Palitoy finally released this into the Action Force range, it came on a large card that came with a little snowmobile vehicle, the AF5, I think it was. I'm probably going to get that wrong. Yeah. Yes, Cutthroat. I've got pretty much all of the original Action Force figures in my collection. I don't obviously own this prototype, but yeah. This is again, Bob calls this an alternative prototype for the Night Patrol figure. This I do notice some unique differences with, and it looks like he has a reserve parachute kind of molded into his front. That the eventual retail release figure didn't come with that. And he also has like an oxygen mask on, maybe for high altitude parachuting. The eventual retail release figure didn't come with that either. This was part of the second wave of 1982, the Night Patrol figure. An interesting, quite cool piece, as this was not during that first year of Palitoy Action Force. Everything was scaled down Action Man stuff, and then in '83 they started introducing the teams, where we got the Z Force and the SAS and Q Force and Red Shadows and all of that. So in '82, everything was supposedly scaled down Action Man, but in the second wave of stuff that came late that year, they were introducing stuff like this that was not in the Action Man range. So it was kind of like inspired by, this could have been a fifth member of the Action Man special team, that kind of idea. So Brian Robinson, good to see you here. He says, Happy New Year, Tony, from Liverpool, England, mate. Awesome channel. Thank you very much. And Happy New Year, sir. You've got a little over an hour to go. If I'm still streaming at that point, I might not still be streaming at that point. I don't know. We'll see how we go. Yeah, kind of the other way around, Crossbones. So Baron Ironblood became Cobra Commander in the Battle Action Force comics in that mythology. So yeah, probably if you worded that question the other way around, that would be correct. So they did make it canon that Baron Ironblood is Cobra Commander. So yeah, absolutely, Jesse. This could be like the Action Man SAS parachute attack. It's similar, not exactly the same. So right, this item is unique for a number of reasons. So we've been talking a lot in this live stream about the metal prototype figures and the resin prototype figures. This is a wax prototype, which makes it insanely fragile. As you can see there, an arm's broken off. The hand has broken off that arm and has been lost. Both feet have broken off. But what makes this very, very unique is that this wax prototype of a British sailor, which was made as a possible entry for the 82 series, but it didn't qualify as one of the 12 Action Man uniforms. So it never got made. As George Aitken says here, that sailor was never released. So that's what makes it unique. And I look at this wax sculpture and think, man, the amount of detail that's packed into this. I'd be interested to know how tall this wax sculpture is. This is a genuine original. Like, this is a first stage prototype. When they did the wax ones, then they made rubber molds to then produce resin and metal prototypes after that. This is like the earliest stage of that prototype development process. Really, really interesting, and most likely going to sell for. This is something that I would never bid on, because I would be too worried about owning something made of wax, and I'll be petrified of having it shipped international from the UK to Australia. So, oh yes, M Vargo, absolutely. I would love Stan Solo to have a crack at a few of these, but I don't see it ever happening, to be honest. I don't think the market is there for it, like it is for a lot of the Star Wars customs that Stan Solo does. You know, I know Stan Solo does have to invest a lot of money into each, every figure that they produce. There's a lot of capital that has to get put in at the beginning to, produce the tooling and that kind of thing, and it would be a very, very big risk. So, Jeff Morris, I would have absolutely no idea. I think you would most likely ruin it if you tried to repair it. So, yeah, like Jason says, that's the way that, like, if you try to repair it, not only are you very likely to damage it, but it's gonna lose its value. Yeah, I wouldn't touch this thing. And I think any collector who's going to stump up the kind of money to buy something like this is not going to be mucking around with it. So, very, very interestingly, even though that figure never got produced, they kind of hung on to the concept and repainted one. So this one doesn't say if this is metal or resin. I think this is a resin one. A prototype of what Palitoy was going to call the naval rating. So they took that original concept, even though it hadn't been produced, and went, "Hey, this would be a really awesome addition to the Q-Force range." So the aquatic branch of the Action Force that started in 1983. This was also never produced, most likely because of the tooling, the new tooling that would have been required. Because this looks to me like it has certainly a unique torso, a unique head. Not sure if the legs are unique or not. They potentially are. Okay, M. Vargo, this is the only one he's seriously considering. Well, if you do bid on this, my friend, I'm not going to bid against you on this particular one. I wish you all the best, and please let me know if you do have a bid and if you end up winning or not. So, Brian, I'm not sure if you joined late. I did share some of these. The estimates on these are 100 to 140 pounds on most of them, and I think that is way, way off. Bob sold a bunch of similar prototypes a number of years back, and they were fetching 600 pounds a piece. I think now, the value of all of our collectibles has gone up in the last, since COVID made prices skyrocket, because everyone was stuck at home and they started buying toys. The estimates are very, very low. I would be surprised if something like this went for less than £600, given the precedent that was set last time. So, okay. This is one of the items that I am very, very interested in bidding on, because it says this is a metal prototype of the SAS figure, which was used on the display at the 1982 British Toy Fair. It was sculpted in clay, and then rubber molds were taken of all components. Metal castings were taken from the molds, and the figure was assembled and hand painted. Now, this one is in a sitting position. Jason, nobody bid on this. What? If I'm going to bid on anything, it's probably going to be this for a number of reasons. So, several years back, Bob Brechin very kindly gifted me some original Palitoy Action Force prototypes. And I've got, where's my image of it? Please tell me I uploaded this before the stream. Sorry, StreamYard has made some changes in the background, and I haven't streamed for a while, so I'm kind of missing. Oh, here we go. All right, so this is from my personal collection. In the center there on the figure stand, that is the retail release SAS figure from 1982. On the left-hand side in the acrylic is the 4-inch tall metal prototype, original. And on the right-hand side, who is missing his lower leg and his right hand, is the resin prototype. Bob gifted both of these prototypes to me a number of years back now. I want to say probably about four years ago. And I also have a test shot of the front of the torso there in yellow plastic, a resin example of the head, and a metal casting of the arms. So I have this already have this kind of collection of SAS prototypes. And while you might think, well, Tony, don't you want to let some other collectors have an opportunity to get this? Well, the thing is, I don't have a prototype of the MP5 submachine gun, which is included with this. So not only is this a metal figure in a different pose, but it's the prototype weapon, which I don't have with my kind of mini collection display of Palitoy Action Force SAS prototypes. So Christopher here says, Happy New Year, Tony. I wish Bob a lot of luck. So do I. So do I. I've been planning on selling on eBay myself and doing quite well. I hope him the same. Yep. I really do. That's why I'm hosting the stream. I want to help boost the signal and, hopefully Bob gets a really good start to 2025 and makes himself a good amount of coin. So, yeah. So again, and this is proof that there are, in some cases, more than one of these prototypes around. So, I don't know how many there are, but in this case, of the metal ones, there's certainly a standing one that I have and a sitting one, and then there's a resin one. So George Aitken says he would have loved a straight-armed SAS squad leader. What's your reasoning for that, George? I'm curious. And I know, like the posing they gave him, it kind of allowed him to hold the MP5. But yeah, why would you like a straight-armed one? So. Hey, Tim Hayes, good to see you, buddy. That was Jason Anderson gifted 10 Analog Toys channel memberships, and you were one of the lucky recipients. So you can thank Jason Anderson for that. Brian Ford says, imagine gifting that to your 90-year-old windbag. Merry Christmas, Granny. What you don't want, I'll take it off your hand. That's a random comment. Brendan Haley. Happy New Year, my friend. I hope you're doing well, sir, over in sunny Queensland. Thank you very much for the very kind super chat. He says, for the SAS, sitting on my butt with new MP5 Trooper. He's having a rest. He's been in service for like 43 years, man. He's taking a break. Okay, George says, just for some variety, only the Frogman and Pilot were straight armed, and the mail away Action Force Commander as well. So, well, the certificates were made by Bob Brechin himself and hand signed. So I don't know what you mean by official certificates. Like, you don't get much more official than coming from Palitoy's original chief toy designer. Like, the certificates are not produced by the auction house. This is stuff that Bob has done to, and also to help people know what it is they're bidding on. You can read the description that's on the certificate. So, Bob designed them, printed them out, and then signed them by hand. So I don't think you can get much more official than that. So okay. Now we have the US Paratrooper. This is the resin prototype. When this figure came out in 1982, this was also sold on a much larger card back, but just because it came with a working parachute. And my example of this in my collection was gifted to me by George Aitken. So thank you very much, George. As was many of the figures in my collection, to be fair. Jeff, I wouldn't. I do agree. Getting Bob's autograph is a bonus. But the certificate isn't a new touch. Like as I said, Bob sold off some of these items around 6 or 7 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, and he was doing the whole certificate thing back then as well, in the same design and everything like that. So. I believe that is the case, George. Yes, Bob did save a lot of these prototypes from the dumps. Well, not after the toy fair, but after the Palitoy design department was closed. Everything. I think that's when everything was getting thrown out in 1984. Not after the toy fair in '82, but yes. Oh, okay. Sorry, Jeff. Nice touch, not new touch. A little typo can create so much confusion sometimes. Yes, Jason. Yeah, and I think what people are expecting is like if you send an item off to be graded, it might come back with a certificate that's got a gold sticker on it or some shit, makes it look more official. But I don't think you can get anything more official than something that has been hand signed by the original designer. Absolutely. And as an example, Bob probably made these certificates at different times because this one has been autographed with a felt pen with a Sharpie, whereas this one has been autographed with a biro. So it was probably done at a different time. So. Oh, that's awesome, Dragon Reborn. He says, Bob gifted him a few prototypes from the toy fair recently. Pride of my collection. Yeah, he's an incredibly generous man. So, congratulations, you and well deserved, Dragon Reborn. Well deserved. Yeah. So again, I think this is a very attractive prototype. This US Paratrooper. Part of the original 82 range, one of the few figures that came on the larger deluxe card backs. So yeah, if this also has an estimate of 100 to 140 pounds, they're way undervaluing what they've got here. So yes, absolutely, Jason. It also has his picture and title. And when you talk about provenance as well, one of the good things with Vectis is they do not go back on their website. They don't go back and delete older auction. You can still go back now and look at the last time Bob was selling prototypes. I don't know how easy it would be to search for, but that's how I know that last time kind of the average price for items like there was the resin prototype of the Action Man Ground Assault figure that went for £600 about 10 years ago. So all right, take care, Brian. You can always catch the replay anyway, my friend. Thank you very much. Timothy Ward, Happy New Year, my friend. You didn't have to send a super chat, mate. But thank you ever so much. Says Tony, have an amazing trip in Japan and Happy New Year to everyone here. Thank you very much. I'm the closer I'm getting to the Japan trip. I think we're off in like 11 days time. The more excited I'm getting. I can't wait to see what toys I come back with, and even more than that, wait to see what content comes out of it. You know, I want to be making some toy hunting videos for you in Tokyo and other parts of Japan, and I'm really excited to see what they look like. But Timothy, man, thank you for all you do for this channel. The audience probably doesn't understand how much you work in the background helping me moderate the comment sections and the Facebook page and all of that. And dude, I love you. I hope you had a great year, and best wishes to you and your family for 2025. God bless you, Tim. Kevin Kelly asks, Tony, will you be shopping for some Takara Joes? If I come across some, I'm probably going to come back from Japan with a Takara G.I. Joe, yes. Thank you, George. That would be very kind of you. I want to see a video of Tony and F-Bomb Blitz on Sake and watching Japanese game show. You'll probably get a video of me and F-Bomb Blitz on Sake, but I don't know about watching Japanese game shows. But something which I don't know if it's going to happen, but we're also traveling with my dad, who I've talked about a lot on this channel because he inspired me to become a toy collector. And while he has photographs of him have appeared in Analog Toys videos, he's never actually been in one. And I'm not going to, there's no way I'm going to come back from Japan and not have a video that has an appearance from the man himself, from the great Fred Roberts in the video. So, okay. All right. We talked about a couple of, the metal and the resin prototype of the Australian Jungle Fighter earlier on. These are some really clean pieces. These are the original metal tooling aids for the Jungle Fighter. So the legs, the arms, the torso, the head, and the slouch hat. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the tooling aid for the Thompson machine gun or the machete, which were the other two accessories that came with that figure. So Bob did tell me something about that. So Jason here says, dang, that Frankenboot going on. There is something attached to that boot. I'm just looking back through some messages from Bob. Please bear with me a second. Okay, he says here, notice the brown additions to the soles of the boots, which is, I believe, Roger Morrison, who was Palitoy's tooling manager. He got the tool maker to add to level up the sole before casting. I believe it was something to help with the injection molding. I'm no expert at this stuff, but there you go. Jesse, my dad would never agree to do a live stream. He's not as he's a man of few words, my dad, unless you get a few sakes in him. But I'd just be happy with him appearing in a couple of Tokyo toy hunting videos. So. And George Aiken says, if Bobby grabs that, he'll say to you, he may have a carded one, but I did one. Well, yeah, that is one way for him to one-up me, getting that carded one at Joe Fest. Was that last year or the year before? I went to Joe Fest in 2022 and 2023, and I can't remember which one of the two. I think it was last year, but anyway. Hey, an interest. So there's not many Action Man pieces in this auction, but what is there is very, very cool. So this is the original concept model for the new Action Man sharpshooter position. So when they went to the dynamic physique figures in 78, I believe that was, one of the guys who worked at Palitoy, I think Bob said it was John Hawkes' son. John Hawkes' son was playing with the figure, and he was complaining that when Action Man kind of laid down to look down the sights of his rifle like a sniper, it couldn't hold the head in the upright position to look down the sights. It just kept, there was a rubber connector inside the neck that kept forcing the head back down again. So they came up with this very unique idea of just adding a notch at the top of the torso where you could pull the head back and it would kind of lock into place. And this is that original concept, which has been attached to a Talking Commander torso. So the certificate here says, this is the original model of the modification to the neck of Action Man to create the sharpshooter. It was the idea of the son of design director John. Oh, I was right. It was, John Hawkes. It was such a simple idea, but it allowed Action Man to lie in the prone position and fire his rifle with his head held up. So something that changed the figure for the last few years of the line. And some great provenance with this piece, something very interesting that many an Action Man collector would like to add to their collection. So now, I messaged Bob about this one the other day because this certificate says that these are the metal tooling aids for the German Stormtrooper. And I believe the legs, the torso, and the arms are the original metal tooling aids for the German Stormtrooper. But when I looked a little bit closer, I messaged Bob and I was like, Bob, that doesn't look like the German Stormtrooper's helmet. That looks like the German staff officer, which I know Palitoy developed a prototype of that figure, but it never got released into the line. And when Bob had a look, he went, oh, no, you're absolutely right. That is the head of the German staff officer. And again, because that is a figure that a lot of Action Force collectors know that a prototype concept was developed, but it was never actually released. It could make this quite a lot more desirable. So again, this item may fetch some good money at the auction on the 16th of January, 10 a.m. UK time. So I really like this kind of stuff here. So these are test shot examples that are still on the sprues. And here we've got, and there are a few of these auction lots up. I just grabbed a couple of photos. I didn't kind of feel the need to grab all of them. But these are pieces of the Kraken. So a test shot of the front half of the red torso, and then test shots of the legs, the arms, and the heads that are still on original sprues. And then the weapon there. So the certificate reads, these are test shots of components for the Kraken. Test shots would be taken from the injection molding tools to check the moldings before production. They would almost never be in the correct color, but would be in a plastic material that the molder would have in hand. Yeah, so whatever kind of color that they had on hand. But in this case, looks like they actually got the right colors for this one. However, these test shots are in the correct green color, so would have been to test the production plastic material before Palitoy signed off on the full production run. You can see through all of the different lots that are available here, it kind of tells the story of the whole development of these toys, from an original wax prototype to then metal and resin castings, metal tooling aids that are unpainted, complete metal figures that are hand painted, through to these test shot parts that are on sprues. It's this kind of whole story of how these classic toys were developed back in the day. King Eric the Greatest of All says, release that Kraken. Yes, I agree. Release the Kraken. Now, with the Robo Skull being probably the most high profile, popular, desirable toy in the whole range, I would imagine that this item would go for a fair amount of money. These are like the Kraken before, these are test shots of components, but these are test shot components for the Robo Skull. So you've got like the guns that went on the side of the chin guns. Look like they're on original sprues. There is the clear plastic hatch cover and that kind of thing. For a Robo Skull fan out there, these items might go for a bit of money. You never know. The company that made the Robo Skull Mark II, they might want a piece of Robo Skull history and they may bid on this item. I certainly think, once again, that the estimate of 100 to 140 pounds is way, way, way conservative. I believe this is the last slide I've got. And as I said, I didn't grab photos of everything. I'm probably only covered 70-80% of what Bob is putting up. So there's a link in the description below where you can go directly to the Vectis website and check out all of the lots that are available in this 16th of January auction that's coming up. But this was a really cool piece, just a bunch of different test shot items for the Space Engineer, which I believe came out in '84 from the Action Force Space Force. So test shots of the flexible PVC tether that would kind of plug into his back and then would plug him into the side of the Triad fighter and that kind of thing. George said the black part looks like the Space Force defense. What black part? Oh, you're talking about on the slide before. Yeah, potentially. Yeah, perhaps not. Perhaps that's not a Robo Skull part, but you know, there's a lot of Robo Skull parts in that lot. So Cutthroat Comics asked, did Action Force ever have dogs that went with any of their figures? If you know, none that Palitoy produced themselves, but for example, I believe Mutton Junkyard, the Hasbro G.I. Joe, that was sold in Action Force packaging in '85. But Palitoy didn't produce any. I don't think they produced any pets for the Action Force line. So, all right, and that wraps up the slideshow. That's a look at all of the awesome stuff that that Bob is putting up for auction. I do wish him the absolute best of luck with this. Am I going to bid on that SAS prototype? I don't know. Maybe we'll see what happens. I'll let you know when I get back from Japan if I bid and whether I won or not. Yeah, Drag, I really hope that all of this goes to collectors and not to dealers who are going to try and resell later down the line. It's a unique opportunity to acquire items like this, and I really do hope that everyone, that the collectors out there who really want these pieces get an opportunity to acquire them. So for anyone who's going to bid, I wish you all the best of luck, and I hope you win the items that you want to bid on. So, all right, before we wrap things up, I feel like I'm quite parched and my tea has gone cold. King Eric the Greatest of All. Do you mean Michael French? I don't I don't think this is something that Michael would bid on, but you can ask him directly, I suppose, if that's the Michael you're referring to. Yep. Before we wrap things up, I have a mystery box here from Scuba Pete. So I knew that Scuba wouldn't be able to be in this live stream because he's going to a bit of a New Year's Eve shindig with his lovely wife, Leslie. But I do want to wish Scuba and Leslie a very happy New Year and all the best wishes for 2025. And we shall see what he's sent us. For those of you who were on the Patreon and YouTube channel members only live stream that I did, when did I do? I did a post-show live stream after I premiered my Action Man Famous British Uniforms video. And in that post-show, I gave away a bunch of cool stuff. I believe George has already gotten his prize. And there were two that went to the States. I believe one was Wesley Hendricks and one was Drew G. One of those got delivered today. I got the tracking notification. The other one is almost there. So hopefully either Wesley or Drew lets me know that their prize has arrived. This is a very well taped together box. Is that not how it opens? Surely that's how it's supposed to open. This is bomb-proof, this one. Wesley, that was you that got yours today. That's what my pleasure, Wesley, which must mean that Drew G is the only one waiting for his. But looking at the tracking, mate, you're going to get it the day after New Year's. So, because I'm pretty sure the postman's not going to deliver on New Year's Day. Okay, I've almost got this box sussed. King Eric, the greatest of all. Thank you very much for the kind super chat, sir. He says, I appreciate you and Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, my friend, and Happy New Year to everyone in the chat, to all the subscribers of this channel, and particularly to the YouTube channel members and the patrons of this channel. I really appreciate all the support. And I keep saying it, but we have a lot of cool stuff planned for 2025. After this live stream, I do have to clean up the garden after the thunderstorm last night, as Grace told me. But then I'm spending the rest of New Year's Day working on a video. I want to get one more big video out before I head to Japan. I've got 11 days left, and I've got to, I still have a day job, so I've got to try and fit that in as well. So, all right, what do we have here? Oh, my word. What on earth? It is a Mexican bootleg Incredible Hulk figure. That is really, really cool, Scuba. Oh, dude, look at his face. Look at those. It's like zombie Hulk. And has he got... He's got a couple of coiled snakes sculpted into his torso. That is bonkers. And the fact that this is actually in... Oh, look at that. The top of the card folds up as well. You can see the peg hole there. That is an insane, weird bonkers item, Pete, and I absolutely love it. Thank you very, very much, my friend. That's going in my Hulk display. That is just super cool. That's the kind of thing I'm hoping to potentially find in Japan, but obviously not a Mexican bootleg, like a Japanese one as well. So, yes. Slacker Supreme, is there a Superpowers retrospective in the future? Yes, there is. I've still got some more pieces that I need to acquire, though, before that video comes out. And it's one of the things I'm going to be looking for in Japan, because Superpowers figures do turn up there quite a lot from what I've seen in the toy hunting videos I've watched. And King Eric the Greatest of All says, how long is the flight from Australia to Japan? Also, are you going to have someone translate for you? No, I'm just going to rely on Google Translate and just fumble my way through. But the flight we're flying, we've got a connection in Hong Kong. So it's about 7 and a bit hours from Perth to Hong Kong. And then another 3 hours, I think, from Hong Kong to Tokyo. Tim said, that's fantastic. Don't put that plastic in your mouth and wash your hands if you touch it. Thank you, Tim. I've been toying with the idea of collecting Marvel Secret Wars, because I had Marvel Secret Wars in childhood and I didn't have Kenner Superpowers. I didn't learn about Kenner Superpowers until probably the mid-90s. I never saw them in childhood. But I kind of made a conscious decision around 12 months ago. I was going to collect Marvel Secret Wars because that's what I had in childhood, but I decided to go with the far superior line, which is the Kenner Superpowers one. Maybe when I've finished collecting Kenner Superpowers, I will switch over and start collecting Marvel Secret Wars, but I don't know. We'll have to see how we go. Yeah, Jason, like I know a lot of people who've traveled to Japan in the last few years, since Japan was one of the last countries to kind of reopen to international travelers post-COVID. So a lot of people have flooded over there, and no one I know has ever said that they need a translator. You can figure this shit out. You know, I'm a very well-traveled man, and I'm more than comfortable of fumbling my way across Japan. I think I'll be fine. And there's another item in here that came from Scuba. A very cool piece. I love this, Scuba. Thank you very much. He has sent me an original 1970s Mego, and it is the Human Torch from the Fantastic Four. Now, I acquired the original Mego thing at Joe Fest 2023. It was an item that I was eyeing up when I was walking around. I didn't end up purchasing it, and then Bobby Valor went and bought it for me as a gift. So this now means, thanks Scuba, that I need to go out and get the Invisible Woman and Mr. Fantastic to complete the set of the Fantastic Four, which, to be honest, I've been wanting to do for a while anyway, and you've just given me that extra piece of encouragement that I needed. So thank you ever so much for this really awesome gift. I do appreciate it. As I said, I hope you have a great night tonight at your New Year's shindig, and that 2025 is good. So, all right, guys. I was kind of thinking about continuing to stream until midnight in the UK, which is only 20 minutes away. But my throat is getting very, very I'm very thirsty, and my mouth feels very dry, and I don't know as I'm going to make it another 20 minutes. So I'm going to wrap things up there. I want to thank you all for tuning in on this special evening. Hopefully it gave you, for those of you who don't have New Year's Eve plans and you actually wanted something else to do, I hope I kept you entertained for the last sort of hour and 40 minutes. I hope everyone has had a great 2024, but more than anything else, I wish each and every one of you the absolute best wishes for 2025. May the toy god smile on you. May you get everything, you know, if you've got toy hunting goals in 2025, I hope you achieve them. And yeah, just stay safe and be kind. And I hope you're all happy and healthy. And I will see you all in the next video, which is hopefully I'm going to get this other big video out before I head off to Japan. Everything's looking good at this stage. So, all right, take care, everyone. I have to wrap things up there. I really need to go and get a drink. But thank you all for being here. And if you're bidding on Bob's prototype auction at Vectis, I wish you the best of luck. I hope you score something really, really cool. And I will see you all in the next video in 2025. All right, take care for now, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.
All is quiet in the Action Man camp. But what's that powerful shape lurking in the shadows? Action Man awakes, his eagle eyes on the lookout for the intruder. He's after the new multi-role pursuit craft. It's a plane. It's a boat. It's a land cruiser. But the intruder runs into trouble. And the action team move in. The pursuit craft is back in safe hands. So is the intruder.
Action Man.
From Palitoy.